Hello and welcome back. In this video, I am going to talk about the display properties in CSS. An element by nature can either be inline, that means it starts on the same line where the last element ended, and it takes up as much space as its content size, and it does not really have any height and width properties. On the other hand, it can be a block element which starts on a new line and it takes up the entire width of the page. Inline element also start on new line because the block element takes up the entire space. First I start with block elements. This is my page structure and I have created some li elements here. Li elements always starts on new line and that's why they are block elements, and its reason is that their width is by default 100%. Let me save this and open the file on my browser. You can see that each li elements are on new line. Let me show you its width by adding border. I am adding it just to show you its width. Save it and refresh the browser. You can see that its width is 100%, and that could be one of the reasons that why each li elements are coming on new line, but it is one reason. It is not compulsory always. Let me explain it further. If I set its width to 160 pixels only, now even the width of each element is 160 pixels, it again starts on a new line. So this is one example of a block element which always starts on a new line no matter how much is the width or the size of the previous element. They would never start from where the previous element ended. Let me add some paragraphs and headings also. Save it and refresh the browser. You can see that each paragraph and heading are also displaying on new line, which means that they are also block elements. They not only start a new line, in fact they occupy the whole space. So if I add any inline element after the block element, the inline element will also start from new line because the block elements cover the space of whole line. Image element is an inline element, so let me add any image. I have few images on my images folder. Let's use these images. So using img tag, I am adding an image inside the source attribute. I write folder name which is images, then slash, and then image name which is css.jpg, and I also set its height and width. Save it and refresh the browser. You can see that even the img element is an inline element, but still it starts on new line. This is because element above it is block element and it occupies the whole space of that line. So that's why it starts on new line. Now if I add another inline element, then it will come on same line because the previous element is inline and it does not cover the space of whole line. Let me add another image now. Save it and refresh the browser. You can see that now the image starts right after the previous image. The div element is also a block element. Let me add one more image first for better understanding. Save it and refresh the browser. You can see that all the three images are on same line. But if I add the div element, as I told you before that div element is block element, so it must starts on new line and it will occupy the whole space of that line. So I am adding div tag here. I am not adding anything inside it, and after that I add another image. Even the div element has nothing inside, but still the next inline element will start from new line. Save it and refresh the browser. You can see that the image starts on new line because even the empty div occupies some space. After that I am adding few links using the anchor tags. Anchor tag is also inline element. Save it and refresh the browser. You can see that all the links are on same line. We can transform a block element into an inline element, and similarly we can transform an inline element into block element. So let's take a look how we can do that. So I go over to the style sheet, and here let me first try it out with the LA elements. And for the display element, all we have to do is to type display, and I would like to first start with the first value that we can add, and which is none. Save it and refresh the browser. The lists have now disappeared because the display property, when it's set to none, means that the item would not be shown and it won't even be occupying any space. Another property that I would like to talk here, which is similar to the display property, is visibility property. And here if I set the value to hidden, save it and refresh the browser, we can see that it also makes the element disappear, but still they occupy some space over here. So that's the basic difference between the display properties set to none and visibility properties set to hidden. Now as we know that the LA elements are block elements, if we want to convert this block element into inline element, so for this we have to write display inline. Save it and refresh the browser. You can see that it's appearing as inline elements because they are all on same line. So this is a common way of transforming a vertical list into horizontal list. Now one important characteristic of an inline element is that they cannot have their own width and height. They go with the flow of the page content, and which means that if we try to set a width and height property for these elements, it will not work. Let me show you with an example again. Let me comment this width. Save it and refresh the browser. Even if we are removing the width, they remain the same because their size is not dependent upon their width. It depends upon their content size. So the width is equivalent to the content size. Height, width, margin top and margin bottom don't work for the inline elements. First I am going to give margin right and margin left. Save it and refresh the browser. You can see that margin right and margin left works for it. But now if I apply margin top and margin bottom, and I also add height and width, save it and refresh the browser, you can see that nothing changes now. So even though we are able to give left and right margin, we are not able to give top and bottom margin. So this is the characteristic of the inline elements. We cannot really have their own width and height properties. So if you want these properties to work for inline elements, then for this we have to change it to inline block. Inline block behaves like an inline element, which means that it does not start on a new line, but it can have dimensions like a block element. So it can have property of top and bottom margin as well. So if I now save it and then I reload, you can see that all height, width, margin top and margin bottom values that we provide in style sheet are working here. So if I want to change block elements into inline elements, for this we have to use display block. As we know that img tag is a block element. So if I want to convert it into inline element, then first I make img selector on style sheet. And here I write display block. Save it and refresh the browser. You can see that each image is now on new line, which means that they are block elements now. So similarly we can convert any inline elements into block elements and any block elements into inline elements. So that's it for this video. Hope you like it. Keep practicing it and see you in the next video.